time for us to learn about the history of Halloween with Trout. Oh, yeah, mods, can you please change the stream category, please? Thank you. Let us learn Halloween history with Trout, shall we?
Halloween. It's October, and you know what that means. As boring millennials would put it, it's spooky season. The time when all the terrifying things, the goblins, the ghouls, the existential dread related to the fact that you'll probably never get married or bear children come to mind. Unless you're watching this when it's not October, in which case, pretend. What is Halloween? Where did it come from? And who cares? Some of these questions and less answered in today's video when we discuss the history of Halloween. I'm King Trout, and despite what the divorce proceedings would have you believe, I'm a good man, and I will get custody of the kids, you stupid bitch. Our story begins 2,000 years ago on an island to the left
I
of
love
England,
the real story
known for
about jack-o'-lanterns.
Okay.
its hatred of Margaret Thatcher, alcoholism, and a gambling game wherein you start your car. Ireland. At this point in time, the British Isles, as well as Ireland, were occupied by a group of people called the Celts. The Celts were a group of people who would later change the pronunciation to Celts, move to Boston, Massachusetts, and become a shitty NBA team. They followed a calendar which divided the year in half the months being months of light, and half the months being months of dark. On the day that their calendar transitioned from these months of light to months of dark, they celebrated a festival which they called Samhain. This day being October 31st. Samhain was primarily a harvest festival, but they also believed that on this day, the veil between our earthly world and the spiritual other world was at its thinnest.
Did I not say this? Did I not mention this to you guys before? That the ancient Celtic belief for Halloween is that it's the day when the veil between the living and the dead was at its thinnest. I mentioned this like a week or two ago.
The Celtic otherworld was the home to spirits, some good and some not so good. You can kind of almost think of it as like the Catholic purgatory. Or if you're a nerd, like the Lands Between from Elden Ring. They celebrated this festival by creating giant communal bonfires which they would gather around, and everyone would take part of the bonfire home to light their hearths for the winter. They would also offer sacrifices to the spirits, sometimes food or animals or maybe people. Maybe people. No, there's some evidence there might have been people that they sacrificed, but we can't be sure. But maybe people.
Yeah.
Another thing they did, since the spirits could make their way from the other world into ours, and you didn't want to get got by a spooky spirit or a goblin ghoul, is you would dress up so as to confuse the spirits. They may have magical powers and the ability to move from one realm into another, but change your clothes and I have no idea who you are.
Yeah. Okay. So I got this a little backwards. When we did the Halloween thing, I think it was when we did Trout's Halloween tier list. I think I mentioned it. I think that's when I mentioned about the veil being thinnest, but I think it's also when I talked about why costumes were worn. I said it was to scare the ghosts, but according to Trout, it's Trout's research is that it's to confuse them and to make them think they're one of us. So I got that a little confused, I think.
They continued this until the year 46 AD, when for some reason Julius Caesar decided he wanted to conquer Britain. If I have to re-record this clip one more time, I'm going to quit making YouTube videos. So the Romans showed up, and according to every source I read or watched on this topic, the Romans were very accepting of others' religions. Unless you count Christianity, they were crucifying Christians, or they were tying their penises closed and force-feeding them water until their bladders exploded. But no, contemporary historians are like, no, they were very accepting of other cultures' religions. Sure. Well, we won.
Yeah, right.
Regardless, the Romans had a festival they called Feralia, which was celebrated in February. The Romans were obsessed with lost spirits who hadn't found their way to the underworld. In this Roman festival, they worshipped the goddess Pomona, who was the goddess of fertility and a bountiful harvest. They saw how similar their festival of Feralia was to the Celtic Samhain and kind of mushed them together. Apples were a symbol of the goddess, and a method of divination in ancient Rome, or to tell the future, was to fill a barrel full of water and then put apples in it so they float to the top and try and grab them with your teeth. Listen, I didn't look into it, so I don't know how you tell the future by doing that, but bobbing for apples is an ancient Roman method of divination.
And you just thought it was a child's game. No, apparently when you're bobbing for apples, you're conducting the mystical art of fortune telling or future telling or spiritual divination. I really want to know how they came about doing this. I need to understand the logic behind bobbing for apples to tell the future. I need to know.
Now you can't walk away from this video and be like, I didn't learn anything. Because if you're telling me that you knew that bobbing for apples was an ancient Roman method of divination, you're full of shit. You're a liar. You're a liar. Because no one knew that. No one knows that. I learned that, and I still don't even understand how.
Yeah.
It's gross. You're dunking your head in a cesspit full of other people's spit to attempt to grab an apple. How does that predict the future? How does that predict the fucking future?
Yeah.
I digress. So the Romans and the Celts have blended their ideologies together. Fast forward a couple hundred centuries, because nothing very important happened, but now the Catholic Church has its eyes on the British Isles. So the Catholic Church, with the intention of converting those living on the British Isles, saw that it was in their best interest to let the local celebrations continue to exist, but with a new Christian flair. The church realized that in order to convert these pagans, they had to allow for some of their more hard-set traditions to continue to exist, but with a little bit of a Christian twist on them. Now, I know 25 seconds ago I just talked shit about the Romans, claiming they didn't do the same thing. But as a Catholic, my religion is correct.
For fuck's sake.
The church had a method of integrating others' traditions into Christianity. Now, the understanding was that they would have a festival or a set of traditions that had a general theme, in this case, the divide between life and death, and there would be a new wraparound theme involving Christendom. This was the same technique the Catholic Church used to turn the pagan tradition of Yuletide into modern-day Christmas.
And pretty much, like, realistically speaking, every Catholic holiday or high holiday is pretty much based on the high holiday of any number of religions that came before it. Realistically speaking, Christianity and Catholicism is one of the youngest religions in the history of the world. Realistically, there are, like, most other religions did come before Christianity and Catholicism. Yes, Easter is Easter was, what was it? I'm trying to remember. Is Easter the death of Christ or his resurrection? Was it his death? Okay, yeah. So Easter would be like one. Was it the rebirth? That's why I couldn't remember, Kumbbear. I couldn't remember if Easter was the death or the resurrection. Okay, it's the resurrection. Obviously, I'm not Catholic. That's right. Good Friday is the death. Easter is the rebirth. That's right. Okay. I was okay. Gotcha. Yeah, but other than that, the majority of Christian holidays are based off of other religious holidays. They just kind of, realistically speaking, co-opted. They essentially co-opted a lot of other high holidays from other religions and said, "Oh, yeah, this happened on this day." Yeah, Christmas was, the Christmas was as Trout was just saying, is the Yuletide festival. And yeah, of course, yeah, the apocalypse in the stories is the same thing as the Ragnarok. You've got what was it? Oh God, I just had it. There was one that got ripped off of pagan. Like a lot of Christian holidays are kind of pulled from pagan holidays. Um, they did also pull from a lot of Jewish holidays too, because after all, Christianity literally feeds off of Judaism. Leave us not forget about this. Like, Christianity directly feeds from Judaism. Like, literally, the Bible starts where the Torah ends, for fuck's sake. So, yeah, I'm just saying, it, Christianity kind of stole a lot from other people with their holidays and high religious days.
Church had a holy day in March, which they called All Hallows Day, to celebrate venerated saints. Hallow meaning a holy person. In the 9th century, churches on the British Isles began to celebrate All Hallows Day, or as it later came to be known, All Saints' Day, on November 1st. November 1st being the official day for All Saints' Day was extended to the entirety of the Catholic Church by Pope Gregory IV during his papacy. The day after All Saints' Day, November 2nd, was declared All Souls' Day, a day to pray for anyone whose soul was lost in purgatory. All Souls' Day having that common theme with Samhain, where you're essentially praying for souls trapped somewhere between life and death. So we have All Souls' Day on November the 2nd, All Saints' Day, or All Hallows' Day, on November the 1st. The day before, October 31st, was
All Hallows Eve.
Called All Hallows Eve.
Yep.
Or for short, Hallows Eve. Or for even shorter,
Halloween.
Hallow-Eve. Or for even shorter than that, Halloween. In much the same way you would say New Year's Eve. It's the evening before New Year's.
Yes, correct,
New
American
Year's
War God.
Eve. Yeah, shorten it up. Except it was All Hallows evening, the evening before All Hallows Day. And then een is just another way of shorting evening. That's why in the original spellings of Halloween, there's an apostrophe between the E's. The more you know. As time went on, most of these traditions kind of continued. They just lost touch with their pagan roots. For example, instead of dressing up as spirits, instead, mostly children would dress up as venerated saints. Like, I went to Catholic school when I was a kid, and on All Saints' Day back in like 2004, I dressed up as St. Patrick. Here, I'll put up a picture of it. If I can find one. During that period of a few hundred years that I glossed over so casually just a moment ago, the Celts were pushed back from the entirety of the island of Britain to primarily Ireland and what is now modern-day Scotland by the Anglo-Saxons. Now, in traditional King Trout fashion, I will gloss over hundreds of years of British history because they had a civil war like every 10 minutes over there from the year 600 until the year 1700, and I don't care. I'm just using this as a vehicle to get the story to the important part when it goes to America. That being said, the Anglo-Saxons were originally Catholic, then they converted to Protestantism, there was a civil war, blah, 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 blah. Then a guy came along. Guy Fawkes. Guy Fawkes and some of his buddies wanted England to return to Catholicism. Based. Excuse me. So he had an idea. He was going to blow up Parliament. Now, if you'll give me just one...
Chat. Yeah. Oh. As a reminder, we're 5 days away from that. Just as a reminder.
One moment.
No, he's getting a Guy Fawkes mask, isn't he? He's getting a Guy Fawkes mask.
Do you advise that I condone religious extremism or domestic terrorism?
No.
Wait, Shake is there? Wait, Shake Jake is in the house with him? Jake the lawyer.
I've heard that Guy Fawkes is the only person to enter Parliament with honest intentions.
I don't know. I do not know, Leo. Huh. Well, Rod, Jake lives in Texas and Connor lives in Indiana. So was he filming this somewhere? Was he filming this in Texas? Because I can't see Jake having visited Indiana. That's weird.
Extremism or domestic terrorism? No. Damn. Okay, just wanted to check. Thank you.
This is a year ago, Red. This video was from a year ago.
My attorney has advised me you should not do that. But, bad news, he failed. As a result, he was hung and then drawn and...
Thank you, Dragon Rider. Thanks for the tier 1.
Not do that. But, bad news, he failed. As a result, he was hung and then drawn and quartered. The British celebrate this failed terrorist attack for some reason by wearing masks in the visage of Guy Fawkes, burning effigies of him, and starting bonfires. This celebration occurs on November the 5th. Now, I am obligated to roll the clip from V for Vendetta.
On my way here and...
Ah. Yes.
Oh, wait, no, not that one. The other one.
Remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder, treason, and plot. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot.
So now the English also have a festival where they wear costumes and light things on fire, at almost exactly the same time as the Irish and Scottish do. Now, the traditions of All Hallows Eve continued to grow in Scotland and Ireland up until about the 1840s, when a little thing called the potato famine occurred, and the British kind of incidentally genocided a million people. But about 20% of the population of Ireland fled to the United States. And oh, thank God, we finally made it to the part of the story that I care about, the part that takes place in America. All Hallows Eve had basically not been celebrated pretty much at all in the United States prior to the arrival of these Irish and Scottish immigrants, mainly because the population of America was almost entirely Protestant, and they really hated anything that was considered too Catholic. Man, one of the lights on my set has been off for like half of these clips. I'm gonna figure this out one day, I swear. I'm gonna figure out how to do this YouTube thing one day. Not today, but one day. The Irish and Scottish immigrants brought this tradition with them to the States, to which the Americans responded by going, "Oh man, that looks fun. I want to wear costumes and have a party." American children in particular took to the idea of dressing up in costumes, running around and having fun. Now, since most Americans, as I mentioned previously, at the time weren't Catholic, it kind of became a more secular thing. Having lost its religious roots, what eventually became modern-day Halloween started in America as what was called Mischief Night. On October 31st, children would dress up in costumes and wreak havoc. It was like the Purge, but for kids. They would run around breaking windows, destroying things, opening up gates on...
Wait, hold up. Wait a minute. I thought Mischief Night was October 30th. Because I always thought that Mischief Night was the precursor to Devil's Night. Yeah, that's what I was thinking, Kanito. That's what I always thought. I thought that Mischief Night was on the 30th, and it was the precursor many, many moons ago to what is now Devil's Night on October 30th. I didn't think that Mischief Night was considered the 31st in times of old. No.
Pastures to let all the animals out, to the point where in some places they didn't even call it Mischief Night, they called it Gate Night, because the kids would open up the gates, and they would pull other miscellaneous pranks. Now, one story that kept coming up over and over again while I was researching this was the story of, I think it was in New York, kids disassembled a cart and then rebuilt it on the roof of a barn, which is I'll give you credit for that. That's actually pretty fucking fun.
That's kind of fun.
Eventually, it got so bad that organizations like the Boy Scouts started hosting parades and other little bullshit to keep the kids distracted so they wouldn't absolutely demolish a town with their chaos. During this same period in time, a woman by the name of Doris Hudson Moss wrote an article for American Home magazine wherein she told the women of America, hey, I figured something out. If you offer these little hoodlums treats, they don't destroy your house. She had invented a form of bribery wherein she gave treats to the children to keep them from pulling tricks. Can you see where this is going?
Interesting.
The phrase trick-or-treat, as adorable as it sounds, is a very thinly veiled threat. The concept wasn't entirely new, though. There was a tradition called souling, which took place on All Saints' Day in Europe, wherein impoverished families would go from house to house and be offered little cakes called soul cakes in exchange for prayers and songs. And there are plenty of traditions from all around the world wherein primarily children will go from home to home and they'll exchange like a song or something for, you know, a little treat. But trick-or-treating had a uniquely American twist on it. Give me candy or I'll destroy your house and kill your livestock. This tradition began to spread across the country because Americans found it the better option to the child purge I described earlier. In addition to trick-or-treating, many American schools and youth centers around the country began to hold costume creating contests and pumpkin carving contests so as to channel these children's destructive, chaotic energy into something productive and fun. These traditions continued to spread and grow across the country in the early 20th century until the post-World War II economic boom. America was doing great economically, and it didn't take long for companies to realize, hey, we can sell costumes and candy to people, make this a whole thing. In this post-war economic boom time...
No shit. Honestly, I'm surprised it took companies this long to do it. Like, this is even back during this time period that Trout's referencing. Companies is still gonna company. Corporate is still gonna corporate regardless of the time period. I'm legit surprised it actually took this long, and they didn't jump onto it even faster.
Of cookie-cutter houses in suburbia with white picket fences, nothing quite hit our American heartstrings more than sending our children dressed as goblins and ghouls from house to house to collect candy. The first Halloween celebrated by a president in the White House was Eisenhower, fittingly enough. Halloween continued to grow and grow, till it became what it is today, the most quintessentially American holiday. An amalgamation of multiple different cultures' beliefs mushed together into one thing that we celebrate by buying cheap Chinese shit and corporatizing a religious festival. America. Currently, Halloween is a multi-billion-dollar industry each year, and nearly 1/4 of all candy sold in the United States of America annually is sold at Halloween. Where will...
Yeah, I bought 4 bags of that shit, and it's currently sitting in my kitchen, not being handed out to trick-or-treaters because it's storming on the East Coast right now. Fuck.
Halloween go from here? I don't know, it's definitely not going anywhere. Like I just said a second ago, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. Baby, it ain't going nowhere. From its humble beginnings as a Celtic pagan festival celebrating the harvest, to its current standing as a Spirit Halloween pop-up store appearing in an abandoned Target near your home.
Yeah.
That's been the history of Halloween. Stay tuned for part 2 when I break down the origins behind all of the goblins and ghouls and spirits and monsters that we associate with the holiday. I've been King Trout, and as always, thank you for watching.
Now, that was a very nice history lesson, wasn't it, chaps? Very nice history lesson on how Halloween began.